Now, before anyone in the Bat family asks, why are you uploading this video, Boba, before the movie is actually properly out? Well, that's because, believe it or not, quite a lot of people have seen it already. So, Bat family, should go without saying that unless you're the kind of person who kind of likes seeing spoilers before you go into a movie and hearing everything about it, but I don't know why, but some people are that way inclined. If you do not want major spoilers for the ending of the Batman, how that even goes to set up the sequel, some explained bits and bobs that I'm sure you want me to talk about, do not watch this video unless you've seen the movie. Now, I've got a couple of more things to say before we get into everything. I will timestamp this video if you just want to skip this. I just thought that since more and more people have seen the Batman now, whether that be a lot of fans, believe it or not, on the 1st of March in America, perhaps even you are watching this coming out of your midnight launch, which is kind of why I did this video, as a nice piece coming out. You haven't got my spoiler review yet, but hey, let's talk about the ending. I can do some spoiler talk about that in the meantime. But anyway, right before we get into this, I just want to say welcome aboard to any new subscribers on our channel. Everyone's support recently has been amazing. We are practically 900 subscribers away from the 100,000 subscriber milestone. If anyone here in the old days of the channel, not that I don't think anyone particularly gives a crap, it's been a long-standing joke that I said I'd reveal my name at 100k, so I'll be doing some kind of 100k special video. I'm looking forward to something like that coming out on the channel. But if you are just brand new here, or if you think you're subscribed, double check, or maybe even consider subscribing for more Bat content like this, because we are going to get into a lot of breakdowns. We're kind of back to square one now in a very, very early, well, it's not even pre-production, but like update day videos of the Batman sequel, the HBO Max spin-off shows. This is going to be content for years to come, so I hope you enjoy your time here. And of course, there's going to be a lot of spin-off videos coming out of this movie, given what you just saw. So let's get into, first and foremost in this video, before we get into the other repercussions of the power struggle in Gotham and what sets up the sequel, or just at least the interim period between the Batman 1, or should I say Chapter 1 and Chapter 2, we need to talk about that Joker and Riddler scene. And also, everybody, the bonus deleted scene. Yes, I mean, I know some of you may have heard this already, but this might be a revelation to some of you. Yes, a bonus deleted scene that Matt Reeves said includes the Batman going to Arkham, and how Barry's Joker, or John Doe in this case, and we'll get into exactly what I mean by that, is in that scene, and just so much more. And I just want to say it, I have to do it. I don't do this often. Do you all remember how in various videos my eye was twitching like this, saying that Barry Keoghan's role as Stanley Merkel, wink, wink, is a cover role for a much larger role, and some of you are like, Boba, he's not the Joker, you know, he's clearly playing Officer Stanley Merkel. But I was just like, guys. But let's first get into what Barry's Joker was saying to the Riddler, and I'm just going to call him, for the sake of the video, Joker, because basically he's the Joker, even if, and I'll get into this even more, just like how Selina in this movie doesn't even have the title of Catwoman, albeit having every characteristic of that of Catwoman. Same thing kind of with Barry here. So what I loved about this is, like, initially, you know, when we had the Riddler crying, and I love, you know, and I'm going to get obviously a lot more into this in my spoiler talk, how we have Riddler and his like crying moans. He's like, you know, he's just kind of this unhinged, like, this is not the way I planned for any of this to be. And we have Barry just saying, and his John Doe, if you will, Joker, it's like, don't be sad. You did so well. Oh no, you did great. And Gotham loves a comeback. And the thing I love about that dialogue is that I think he does mean that. Don't get me wrong. He does probably mean that. It's like, you will come back, buddy. And this is another thing in of itself that I love about Matt Reeves. And I'll get a lot more into this in my spoiler review, is if you know a little bit about my thoughts going in, is I really didn't want Riddler to die or anything like that. I thought that Reeves instinctually and intuitively to me wouldn't, with everything that he's shown us, do something like that. He'd be more to that of the animated series or the source material, where they get locked up and they come back kind of thing. And I'm glad that bloody happened, because here it's just kind of teases in the future, not even saying that we will see Paul Dano again, even though it is a possibility. It's just nice to know in headcanon that, oh, he's in Arkham, but he got excited even from that upset moment, from the reassurance of Barry's Joker that, hey, maybe I shouldn't be so sad. I can have a comeback, and Gotham loves a comeback. But again, the core bottom line for me is when he's just like, oh, don't be sad, you did so well, and things like that, and excuse my terrible impressions or whatever, is that he seemed to be somewhat manipulative in the way the Joker can be with his charisma, in a sense, you know? It's like he's deliberately doing it, but he's also deliberately gassing the Riddler up there. Now, there is a line, I believe all before this, where he just, talks about, and then one day you're just kind of a clown. That's such an abbreviation, but obviously that was quite an on-the-nose reference to him being the Joker, and one day he's kind of the clown situation. But I do have the firm dialogue of what happens from that moment onwards. For example, when we have Riddler saying, after hearing him getting gassed up and that he can maybe have another chance, and he did great, Joker's been observing this and maybe hearing about it within the walls of Arkham. But also, that's not the only way he would have heard about this because of the deleted scene that we're about to get into. But that's when Riddler says, who are you? And I love how he's just like, well, that's the question, isn't it? And then he says, riddle me this. The less of them you have, the more one is worth. And then you see Edward again, and it's just kind of like he really has fallen under the Joker's spell. Joker knows how to play up to Edward already because he knows he loves riddles, so maybe that's a bit of an easy one. But you see Edward get all excited, and it's like a friend. And then that's obviously where the laughing comes in. I am a fan of Barry's laugh. I'm sure this will come out in many ways. Like, even if you're thinking that I'm not so sure about this, I don't know what to make of it. For me, it was more than above satisfactory. And I really do feel like I have quite an accurate depiction of what they're going for with this Joker. Now, first of all, when Riddler asks, who are you? And he says, well, that's the question, isn't it? This speaks larger to what I was saying before, in how I really do believe he might not even be called the Joker at this point. And to not repeat myself too much from earlier, this is really where this Batman universe is at with what Reeves is telling. Now, Batman during this movie was a Batman that was still becoming, as Reeves said, but the other characters are also that way as well. Granted that Batman was already in year 2, he has the iconic looking suit, he is Batman for all intents and purposes, but whereas Catwoman doesn't have the moniker of Catwoman, she's mainly just Selina Kyle. Oz does get called the Penguin, but he likes introducing himself as Oz. One day he will embrace that name when he is the kingpin of the criminal element, but right now, you get what I'm trying to say. They all still embody, fundamentally, the characteristics of the mythic characters they will become in a short to long-term amount of time, but maybe not all in names. So you can translate the same for all intents and purposes. This John Doe, if you will, this unknown character, this, as Matt Reeves puts it himself, unseen Arkham prisoner, just hasn't taken the moniker of Joker yet, but embodies all of that, which makes up the Joker, albeit I feel like is untapped with all the potential he has yet to wreak havoc on Gotham with. And just another side note here, another thing I loved about this scene, and this comes just to the set design, I loved Arkham, but again, this is more my spoilery thoughts for my review, but just to say it, as the camera was panning out, as they were laughing, the way they managed to do the silhouette here of the Joker as he was laughing was straight out of a comic book panel. If you didn't catch this the first time, when you go see the movie again, which I'm sure a lot of you will, you see the Joker laughing in such a way where his head keeps going up and down like that, as if it is that kind of comic book panel where you have the wide smile and he's just like bellowing in laughter, if you know what I mean. It's just like if I put this freaking mask on, you can just see it's just like okay, that was cringy, but you know what I mean. All I'm trying to say is they knew exactly what to do in that scene. Granted, you did get a look at his face and the prosthetics and makeup they applied to him, but even in that moment where you couldn't make out his face because you were like halfway down the hall, you saw the iconic silhouette of the Joker laughing up and down as his head and smile just formed that kind of iconic figure that we know exactly as to who that is. He's already in Arkham. What's the deal with that? So my idea there is that, just as with what I've already been explaining, is that perhaps Barry's John Doe hasn't reached his full Clown Prince of Crime capacity yet. And maybe even Batman put him there. I am very undecided on that because it could be more of a situation that he was just put there after perhaps he was recovered after whatever disfigured him so much since he was so crazy. I like how Matt Reeves, just like what he said in plenty of quotes, this universe, despite being a Batman story that refers to his origins, while not being an origin in the Batman that is still becoming, you also have that with other characters, as I've already very much so gone over. So with the Joker here, you don't have to give him that origin. We don't really know if it was Ace Chemicals that gave him that blistered, disfigured skin, that we're going to get into a little bit of those details in a second. He's just there. And Batman might not even know how he was there. He could have, as I said, whether it was Ace Chemicals that disfigured him or something else, he could have been put there because he did something so low tier Joker, not like what he's going to do that could completely cause such fear in the heart of Gotham's public in the future, and they had already put him away in a cell. But I do have some things going against that in how he could have done something pretty messed up and Batman may have put him away due to that deleted scene with Batman going to Arkham in an effort to try and profile the Riddler, and how Barry is in that scene, and how this tells me and could speak to something larger in that the crazy unseen Arkham prisoner in Reeves' universe, despite being a crazy clown, is intelligent and could prove useful, perhaps in somewhat of a consultation Hannibal Lecter-y kind of way. So as for the visuals, guys, I mean, some of you may be like, but Boba, how could you really know that? Like, I have seen it, I did see it, some of you may agree with me, but some of you may need to see this again to really see what he looks like, and this is why it kind of is a little bit irritating that that other scene was cut out. However, Matt Reeves did say, I believe, that he will probably release it after the film, whether he means Blu-ray there, or when it goes to HBO Max, there might be, like, in the bonus section, another scene there. We're gonna have to wait and see, but it just leads me to believe with that scene, surely we may have seen him a little bit more. But in the scene that we did get, we got almost like this side profile right up close with very low lighting, if you will, but it was enough to make out exactly the state that this kid is in. And I say kid for a number of reasons. So this Joker already has his blistered skin with a hideous smile, even to the extent of that side profile, that smile that he has, it kind of goes, you got his lips here, but it's like it goes above and around like that, as if like you were to smear lipstick up here and make a larger smile over that of your lips. But it's not lipstick, this is actual damage, to the point of where on that side profile you can even see how the skin has been torn in such a depth where I believe you even saw a tooth or two shine through the cheek. Like, that's how horrific this is. Now, going into this, I had heard those details, and it, lo and behold, was true. It's as though it keeps trying to heal, but this Joker, in almost like a serious house on a serious earth, it keeps like picking it and never allows it to keep healing over because of how almost self-destructive and crazy he is. The same could be said for the hair. It's almost as if it's been allowed to grow out due to his prison Arkham-esque status, but it's also patchy. Now, obviously not quite in the way of that of freaking Gotham's Joker, where there's only little wisps of hair, but it's more growing out, but again, due to his self-destructive manner and how he picks himself, it's also what he does with his hair. They're really meant to be making you across that, yes, this is the Clown Prince of Crime, he's crazy and he, hoo, ha, but he also is crazy on another level of gruesome. So with the fact that his face is all blistery scarred and like even, you know, has gaps in between the flesh, has already a green to his hair, I'm not saying it is Ace Chemicals, but what I am saying is that this isn't like something applied by him. What I like with what Matt Reeves has done here, albeit we may never know the origin of this character, we're going to get into his comments about exactly what he says about Barry in a second, is that whatever it is what it is. It's not like Heath Ledger, who dyed his hair and applied makeup. This guy innately, because of whatever he's been through, is true to somewhat of the Joker in a super traditional way. This is how he is. To liken it to that of when he falls in the chemical vat, it bleaches his skin, causes disfigurement, and causes his hair to be permanently green. Whenever it grows, even if he shaves it off, it will be green again. This is the state the character is in, and also has lost his mind, and I love how diabolical he is already within just such brief dialogue and a brief scene. Going back to my comments of how Barry Keoghan's Joker is more of a kid Joker, and I don't mean that in literally like, oh, he's a 15-year-old kid. I don't mean it in that sense. And sorry if I ever pronounce the name wrong. I always manage to butcher these things, but just deal with it, I guess. But what I mean is that compare it to that of how Heath Ledger was 27. Like, that's my age. I am 27, believe it or not. And Heath Ledger was also 27. But the fascinating thing, you know, we're all different. We all grow differently or whatever. Barry Keoghan is 29. Now, what I'm trying to say with this is that this is honestly, funnily enough to say, probably going to be more of that of a Jerome Joker. Now, say what you will about Fox's Gotham, but Cameron Monaghan's Joker was that of a younger Joker, but he was an exceptional, arguably one of the best ever live-action Joker iterations. Now, screw the story, some of the story, I'm on about his performance. Heath, when he played the Joker, even in real life, he didn't look 27 years old, I would say. He looked more like in his early 30s, to even you could put him or mark him up to 34 or 35. So when you saw him in The Dark Knight, you could imagine him being similar to that of Christian Bale's age, right? But Barry Keoghan, funnily enough, a couple of years older than Heath, does not come across that way. He comes across more, especially in this Joker role, as a younger Joker than Heath's Dark Knight Joker. I think we're all going to agree on that. And especially after you've seen this scene, which I assume you have, otherwise you wouldn't be watching this video, but I know there's going to be one or two of you like, oh my god, I can't wait to see this now. But he will come across as more of like a mid-20s, possibly early 20s Joker. I can't accurately say that. I could be completely wrong about that. But in essence, there's no way anyone, and I'm really not trying to sound close-minded here, but there's no way anyone could really convince me that he's meant to be as old or older than Heath Ledger's Joker, even though technically the actor is older. This actor is definitely one of those actors who would be kind of marked down in age. And I do believe that they're going more of like, you know, the kind of feeling of truly with this kid, and especially the descriptions I've given and what we've seen in the movie, what happened to him? Like, this isn't like a Jack Nicholson age Joker. This isn't even though Heath was 27, as I said, more of a mid-30s Joker. Like, he will be coming across younger, like, undoubtedly. And it will make you kind of think, and I think this is the impression, it's more like this horrific kind of thing of what happened to this guy, like this kid. Like, I say kid, but like, you know, like, you know, how people call even early 20s, are you just such a kid kind of thing? That vibe, like, who is he? And even though it is still just as screwed up to say the same thing about more of an older looking Joker, or even Heath Ledger's Joker, it's like, man, what happened to this poor man? There's this somewhat more endearing, horrific nature to it when you think and you see the scene of Barry's younger one, because when you apply that to somebody who seems younger in casting, at least, and character, it just adds this layer of, man, Jesus, really though, what happened? Now, with regards to this scene anyway, with what Matt Reeves has said on Barry's Joker in that ending scene, before we actually get to the talk about the deleted scene, Reeves said as follows, and actually, it isn't really a scene, the scene you're talking about, that's meant to say like, that's the next movie, or that's the next character we're gonna do. It was more this idea of a tease and a nod to people who love this world to say, like, oh my gosh, I think that's the character. And he's not even called the character you're referring to. He's the unseen prisoner, because the idea is it's meant to kind of tease you and say, like, is that what that is? Even though it's very, 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 very obvious who it is. Barry Keoghan has been cast as Joker, even if right now, just like that of Batman Telltale, he's in Arkham, he's crazy, he's characteristically got everything Joker, but he hasn't got that title yet, just as Selina isn't Catwoman, or got that title. Now, for the interesting deleted scene with the Joker that was cut out the movie, and I'm not gonna lie, even Reeves was just like, this is a really cool scene. It would have been cool to kind of have it in there kind of thing, and I'm just thinking, damn, like, I cannot wait to break down the scene when it gets released. So this is what he says. When speaking to Tech Radar, he said, there were scenes we cut that I liked. In fact, there's a scene with the unseen prisoner who appears at the end of the movie in Arkham Asylum with the Riddler. This is where some people were getting confused, by the way, just to interject, that they thought that the Barry scene had been cut. No, there's two different scenes. Like what he just said there, there's a scene with the unseen prisoner who appears at the end of the movie in Arkham Asylum with the Riddler, but this is when he goes on to talk about the other scene. So he says there was an earlier scene where Batman went to Arkham to try to profile the Riddler, and Barry is in that scene. It's a very cool scene, and I'm sure we'll release that scene after the movie comes out, because it's a really cool deleted scene. Now, I've got a lot of theories with this. I know like I'm taking a while with this before we even get onto the other stuff that could continue on the Batman story. Like, I'm talking like the repercussions of Falcone's death and stuff. Bear with me here. I've just got a lot of shite to say about this. It makes me so fascinated, because I truly do believe that this Joker is meant to be more leaning towards that of a Cameron Monaghan-y Joker. Maybe a bit older than what we saw in Gotham, but not quite Heath's, as I've said, in terms of older, more charismatic stature of an older mid-30s Joker. He's more of like younger, crazy, effed up, that kind of way. Now, I do want to bring this up. I cannot confirm this, but in the trailers that I was breaking down before, you heard this line that was spoken very similar to that of another line that the Riddler said. Now, the Riddler says, I believe in the interrogation scene with Batman, I've always loved little puzzles. But there was another line which I thought, look, okay, it does kind of sound like Paul Dano, but it also sounds like Barry. And you never know, sometimes in marketing, they do sometimes F with you like this and actually use a scene or an audio clip of another scene that you would think, nah, they wouldn't put that line in there from the Joker. But now we have the context that Batman goes to Arkham And Barry's in this scene, and it's an effort to profile the Riddler. Clearly, at the beginning, 2/3 of the movie, when he's figuring out, oh, who is this guy? I need to try and find out a little bit more about him. Oh, even though I am the world's greatest detective kind of jam, maybe I can use somebody who I know is effed up, but who is also very extremely intelligent. Think that of Hannibal Lecter consultation kind of thing, right? And he goes to Arkham, and maybe that person he does consult to profile the Riddler is the Joker John Doe himself, because that is where he would say this line we heard from the other trailers.
I've always loved little riddles.
Now, considering that line he says at the end with the riddle, you can imagine even if, let's just say for argument's sake, so I could be wrong, Batman doesn't even consult John Doe about it, but John Doe in that hallway overhears Batman trying to profile the Riddler. And he's like, I've always loved little riddles. Now, the laugh after it, though, by the way, of that part of the trailer, just before anyone gets carried away here, I believe that is from Paul Dano, because we actually heard that laugh in the movie, but I believe that was added on right after the line of I've always loved little riddles. I think that could be taken from the deleted scene between Batman in Arkham and how Barry is in that scene. Like, I really wouldn't be surprised after seeing that last scene, knowing what he sounds like, what Barry sounds like as this Joker, him saying, I've always loved little riddles. He's Joker, but hey, he has an appreciation for riddles as well. He even says one to Edward at the end with an answer of a friend. Like, he likes little riddles. So considering, to repeat myself one more time, hearing that line from those TV spots, knowing that this scene has been deleted, it wouldn't surprise me if that line of, I've always loved little riddles, let's play it again.
I've always loved little riddles.
If that is a part of that deleted scene, and let's just assume, I could be wrong here, fully transparent, whether Batman goes to him to deliberately talk to this crazy guy, Hannibal Lecter style, to give him some more information of what kind of person do you think we're dealing with here? And he shows him one of Riddler's riddles. And Joker, bored in Arkham all the time, at this point, John Doe, just this kind of effed up kid, Jerome-looking version, if you will, is just like, I've always loved little riddles. And like he asks with Batman a bit, it maybe gives him a bit of information. And that, as Reeves is describing here, it's a really cool deleted scene. But obviously he had to cut it out, maybe for runtime. Maybe it wasn't an absolute necessity to include it because Batman could still figure it out himself. He didn't need to get the consultation in Arkham. Again, I could be wrong with that. And maybe it was just overheard by Barry and he just says through the bars of the little Arkham door, I've always loved little riddles. But to my knowledge of, certain things I may have heard, he does actually speak to Barry's character, which, if that is true from what I've heard, like with some of the other information that has come true, that as of when Batman, from what we're hearing with this scene, going to Arkham to try and profile the Riddler and Barry's in that scene, well, that just tells me they're talking to each other. Now, take that as you will, but either way, the fact that we have, even excluding that little tidbit that I think could be connected to the deleted scene from the TV spots of I've always loved little riddles, because by the way, just the reason why I think that again, that line wasn't in the whole movie. I'm very sure of that. It wasn't. And it's, since people were debating if that was Paul Dano or Barry, that should say a lot. Again, just wanted to put it out there. But even getting rid of the I've always loved little riddles line, we now know that Batman went to Arkham and Barry was also in that scene. That's so cool. And again, especially for what I've heard, and I doubt that this would be a scene that Batman didn't interact with this guy. Maybe it will give us more context as to how he got put there. Did Batman put him there in the first 1 year, 6 months of his year 2 Batman career? That's another fascinating thing. Just seeing the dynamic between these two. The dance between Batman and Joker maybe hasn't fully started yet because this is in such the infancy of both Batman's vigilante career, but also John Doe doesn't even know he's the clown prince of crime yet. Maybe they have interacted before, and maybe that's how he even ended up there. But that doesn't mean that the long-standing dance between these two has started. It is probably just, if anything, if he was put there by Batman, or maybe he's just heard about him even more through what the Riddler's just been through with him, which is why he says, oh no, you did great. Gotham loves a comeback. Probably because he's planning his own comeback, or way of what he's going to do when he gets out of here. There's so much to read in between the lines here, and that's what I love about just a simple scene and just a simple paragraph of Reeves saying there was a deleted scene with Batman going to Arkham. I think that kind of wraps up my thoughts for now on Barry Keoghan's scene in the ending of The Batman. For my full thoughts on this scene, I'll obviously go into more detail in my spoiler review about how it's displayed, rather than just kind of full intrinsic breakdown mode of what this could mean and how that could add up to that, overall perspective and, candid spoiler talk about everything. But now let's get to the portion of the video in where we talk about the ending, with just how the ending of the Batman movie, where the Riddler plot was over and how Gotham was left in this dire state, if you will, how that continues the universe. First of all, I want to say what Reeves said to Digital Spy, and that is as follows. You don't set out to make Chapter 1 without knowing if you'll ever get to make Chapter 2. But the story of Batman never ends, so you want to leave it in a place where the story continues, because it's as if saying, well, he solved the problem, there's no more crime in Gotham, there's no more corruption, and it's like, well, that doesn't have any basis in reality. That's why Gotham is so relevant, is that there's never a time when corruption and crime are not something, unfortunately, that are part of our world. And so the idea of having an ending that speaks of the continuation is to say that, and Batman lives on. Exactly, like the way they ended it, not only did I feel very satisfied, and again, I will get into the third act. Some people are complaining about that critically in a review sense, and what I feel about that compared to the first 2/3 of the movie. Say what you will about whatever you feel about that third act personally. I love where it left off in terms of like this hopeful state, but also the National Guard are coming in, and it's just like, you know, there's going to be a power struggle. It's going to get worse before it gets better. That kind of situation. It's almost No Man's Land-esque, and if you're a Batman fan, you know what I mean. That's where Gotham truly is cut off, and it is like no man's land. Gotham is this self-contained bubble of, my god, this is going to get messy. And at the end of this movie, granted it's done by flooding, but Batman's, as Selina said, you know it's going to get worse before it gets better for you. That's because Batman's got a lot to deal with, and Falcone is now dead. This is just going to lead to anarchy for Batman to deal with in the interim period between the first movie, Chapter 1, if you will, and the Batman Chapter 2. However, with Falcone being dead, leaving such a power vacuum in Gotham now, we are going to have the criminal element and all the mob bosses fight for power. Now, who was one of Falcone's lieutenants, his right-hand man, as some people even describe him as? Oz Cobblepot, the Penguin. And we see even that iconic shot of him as he looks out the window, and none of us knew really what that was in the trailers, but now we know now. He's looking out at what the Riddler's destruction caused in Gotham. And he's like looking at it like, damn. But also he's probably thinking, in what you're seeing on screen right now, I've got quite a challenge ahead of me. Like, truly. But I think he would have already got some support by now, considering Falcone was a rat, like literally, and like considering what Penguin tried to do was spraying him up in that moment at the end. I think people will be like seeing him as the natural heir to Falcone's throne, considering, you know, Oz isn't quite the kingpin he will become, but considering he was Falcone's right-hand man, a lot of the underlings in Falcone's enterprise and that part of the criminal element probably think, oh yeah, Penguin, like, he's already got a reputation. But this leads me to believe, considering where we leave things off in the Batman, such as more looting opportunities, as Batman says, in this wrecked Gotham, the National Guard coming in, basically this No Man's Land-esque story, as I keep saying, is that it leads me to believe the Penguin show is a bridge now to that second movie, because it could have been interpreted in both ways, and who knows, they may actually add sprinkles of origin in this. For example, like a rise to power, as what the show has been described this whole time, like even as of a long time ago, could have also been his rise to how he even got to the lieutenant point of Falcone. But it makes more sense now than ever, considering Falcone's death leaves his power vacuum, that this truly will be a rise to Kingpin moment for Penguin, possibly setting him up as already near enough to Kingpin level as of where we pick up in the plot for the Batman Chapter 2, when that comes to our theaters around, God, 2024, 2025, considering they've already said it will be out in less than 5 years, ideally, considering COVID did put quite a delay in production on the Batman Chapter 1. But yeah, don't be surprised if it's another 3-ish plus-ish years away. So you get what I'm saying. That leaves 3 years of the Oz Cobblepot Penguin show to come out on HBO Max, and that would take place, I'm very certain, after the end of the first Batman movie. Such a rich potential of all kinds of messy crap to happen, because when Falcone has ruled the criminal element, practically also the, you know, DA and the mayor and everyone else, as the mayor himself, that is going to be a huge power grab and rich story to tell in that show, considering we know that Oz, inevitably in the source material, does become that Kingpin. But I also love what I'm hearing from Colin Farrell with how this show Oh man, like considering the state of things with what we keep mentioning here at the end of Gotham, like sure, Batman's gonna be there, he's gonna have to be there even more because of all, just even the low tier criminals doing some looting to the actual like mob battles that will be happening within Gotham. My god, has he got his hands full. But this will tell, for despite this being not an R-rated movie in most places, the HBO Max series and what this story could entail will be more bloody and violent than what you're expecting. So Colin Farrell says as follows: his ambition and his vulnerability, his humor. I mean, it was just the tip of the iceberg in this film for me. But there were little moments in the scripts that Matt wrote in relation to Oz, little bits of humor and awkwardness as well. And his origin, you know why he is the man he is and all that stuff. Now, this is where things get very interesting. If we get 6 to 8 hours to do it, I just think the character could be endlessly fun and fascinating and brutal. I hear that we're going to be allowed to kind of do an R-rated version, which would be nice to explore the violence that could permit, perhaps, and the darkness that could allow us to explore. So all of those things. So again, this HBO Max series there with what he's saying. 6 episodes, maybe 8 episodes, maybe 50 to 55 1-hour episodes. And truly, I think it's kind of obvious that this will be set after the end of the film. But what he's saying there is what makes him happy. I hear that we're going to be allowed to kind of do an R-rated version, which would be nice to explore the violence that could permit. Now, that might not be a fan of everyone. People will be like, oh, my kid can't watch this or whatever. But to me, selfishly here, I love hearing that. Considering the state of Gotham at the end, with what Batman's going to have to try and keep everything under a lid, but that's impossible. The criminal element will find its natural balance again, and that will be Penguin. But the violence that will entail with what Penguin and Oswald is going to have to do to make his mark and show his intimidation, things will get bloody. Oz will have to show that he is a ruler and will not take any shit. So we're talking like some bloody, violent moments. That Oz, albeit that he was Falcone's lieutenant and he'd probably done some dark things in the past to be at the reputation he was as his right-hand man, now he has to go above and beyond to show that you don't screw with me. I am Oz Cobblepot. Now, I do feel like one of the core narrative focuses of it, other than him proving his rise to Kingpin as Falcone's right-hand man, should he really Falcone's right-hand man ascend to Kingpin? I don't know. Well, not only will he prove that, but I think he will, one of the core focuses will be him embracing the name the Penguin. I think just like how there's a Batman out there and how there was a Riddler, it could even speak to larger messages like that with how, hell, people call me Penguin. You know what? I'm going to be called the Penguin. And that will be something probably by the end of the episodes. Maybe this sounds too cheesy on the surface, by the way, but I do think it will be subtly and powerfully done. He will adapt that moniker, that title of Penguin at the end, and thus have the Kingpin. And the second Batman Chapter 2 movie will, I'm sure like there'll be some destruction left, but I highly doubt there's gonna be flooding in Gotham everywhere as bad as it was right at the end when the helicopter was taking off and stuff. I think the second movie will pick up with Oz already in his seat of power. The city might be past a lot of crap, or shall we say past the thick of it, of what we might still see in the Penguin series, but also setting up a new stage. Gotham won't ever truly be better, unfortunately, but for example, I can imagine a new monologue from Bruce just being like, December 5th, I'm still in the shadows, watching the criminal element as they've battled over power. After the Riddler, the city got worse, but it's been rebuilding, and I've been playing my part. Obviously, cheesy as hell, but what I mean is you can imagine the monologue situation still continuing in the second movie, but again, at the beginning, as it did in this movie, describing the setting, what's transpired, and they'll be like, low-key in brackets, if you've seen the Penguin HBO Max show before this second movie came out, you might have a better idea, but they'll still explain it for that general audience member who hasn't seen the HBO Max show. Bottom line, I'm just very convinced that after the Penguin series, after the end of the Batman, that allows for that Penguin series to explore the struggle between certain elements in Gotham, then the second movie will set up that new status quo, and as Selina said, as I said earlier, it will get worse before it gets better, and it may have got worse, and it may now have got a bit better, but new kinds of worse will always and still come to Gotham. Anyway though guys, I know that was a long ramble, but you know how we do here. We like to get into in-depth detail, so I really hope you enjoyed this. I wanted to upload this as something for you to get into and sink your teeth into in a discussion with me, spoiler talk wise, before I actually release my fully published spoiler review on the Batman. I don't want to overhype my spoiler review or anything. I'm just trying to take my time with it, so I really know how I feel. I'm very confident in how I feel, but as we know with a lot of movies, especially a 2-hour and 46-minute movie kind of excluding credits, I want to make sure my thoughts are solidified, despite basically typing up most of my bullet points already. So let me know what you thought of everything I discussed today. I'm dying to hear what you thought of Barry Keoghan's Joker, the deleted scene, all the crap that's going to happen in Gotham after the movie ends, likely as seen in the Penguin show, spin-off show on HBO Max. But I'm gonna love you and leave you, everybody. Like this video if you did enjoy it. Do consider subscribing. Double check if you are subscribed, because a lot of you just get recommended the videos on your homepage without actually having been subscribed. Follow me on Twitter, follow me on Instagram. But thank you so much for watching. I hope you all have a lovely rest of your day, and I'll see you, Bat Family, in the next video. Goodbye.